Hi all, it's me ARYA.P.S. is going to take a seminar on the topic Franco Modigliani. Franco Modigliani was an Italian-American economist who was born in 18 June 1980 to the Jewish family of a pediatrician father and a voluntary social worker mother. In October 1985, Modigliani was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics for his pioneering analysis of saving and of financial markets. Franco Modigliani also presented a model of limit pricing which may be considered as a generalization of Silos model. So he has some assumption on his model. So now we are going to discuss about the assumption of his model. Modigliani relaxed restrictions assumption which underlie Silos model but also retained the assumption of scale barriers and the behavioral pattern of Silos postulates. So Modigliani's assumption may be started as follows. We are going to speak about that. Okay. The first assumption of him was the technology is the same for all the firms in the history. He says that the technology is same for all the firms in the industry, which means there is a minimum optimal plant size X at which the economies of scale are fully reaped. Now, once the minimum optimal scale is reached, the LAC becomes a straight line. Under these conditions, the LAC is L-shaped and is same for all the firms that we are discussed in this figure. Here, the LAC is L-shaped, which means there is a minimum optimal plant size is there. Now, his second assumption is entry occurs with the minimum optimal plant size. He says that entry occurs with the minimum optimal plant size. So entry with suboptimal size is precluded because in the long run it would imply irrational behavior. So there is an implicit assumption regarding entry, namely the entry comes from new firms. The entry basically comes from new firms. Now, his third assumption was the product is homogeneous and the market demand is not. Product is homogeneous. The point of intersection of the given demand curve with a line drawn at the level of the flat section of the LAC determine the competition. So here we can see in the figure the point of intersection of the demand curve is this the demand curve, DD is the demand curve, and the line demand curve with a line drawn at the level of flat section of the LAC determine the competition output. Here we determine the competition output XC and the competitive price PC. So that is the price and the quantity that would be sold at that price in the long run if the market were purely competitive. So given that in the long run equilibrium LAC is equal to PC, you can see that LAC is equal to PC. Now the price, next assumption is the price is set by the largest firm in the industry at such a level as to prevent entry. So the largest firm of the industry will set the price and they set this price to prevent the entry. The entry can occur. So to prevent the entry, the largest firm will fix the price. Now the next assumption is the firm behave according to the Silos postulate. He says that the firm behaves according to the Silos postulate. That is, the existing firms accept that the entrant cannot enter with a plan smaller than the minimum optimal scale X bar. So we said that there is a minimum optimal scale. So the new entrant cannot enter with a plan which is smaller than the minimum optimal scale X bar. So and that he will not enter if he believes that the price post entry will fall below. So the flat segment of the LAC, the entrant accept that the established firm will keep their output constant and the pre-entry level. So the established firm here will keep their output constant at the pre-entry level. So these are the assumptions. So now we are going towards the model of Franco Modigliani. So under the above assumptions, the equilibrium price PL will be higher than the PC is equal to LAC. So the established firm will earn abnormal profit. So due to the scale barrier which is reflected in the minimum optimal plant size X bar. So the main preoccupation of the firm is determining price at the level which will not at least attract entry. So the preoccupation or the main focus of the firm will be to determine the price at a level so that there will not be any attraction of entry. So the the limit price PL is determined indirectly by determining the total output, which will be sold by all the firms in the industry. So now the established firm will decide to sell a quantity XL such that if the entrant comes and offers an additional quantity X bar, the minimum he can produce optimally, so the total output in the market will just exceed the competitive output X dash. So and the price would fall just below the PC LAC level. Symbolically, this behavior may be started as follows. Okay. Okay. Now, so now here given the XL, the entry preventing price PL is simultaneously determined from the given industry demand curve. Entry will be prevented as long as X by if XL is greater than entry will occur. So now this is the graph which we are now going to discuss. So in figure we can see that DD, which is the demand curve, DD dash is the industrial demand curve. So X bar is the minimum optimal level of output. XL is equal to XC minus X bar is the output which the established firm should produce in order to prevent the entry. So and PC is here, PC is the entry preventing price defined from the demand curve given XL. So now the scale barrier scores PL to be higher than PC, but the difference PL minus PC is the entry gap or premium. The difference between the PL and the PC, here the PC and PL difference is the what is the entry gap or premium, and defined the amount by which the price can exceed the LAC without attracting the entry. So the determinants of the entry gap and the entry preventing price are, so now we are going to determine the entry gap and the entry preventing price. So the first one is the absolute market size XC. So the absolute market size is XC. The price elasticity of demand, is E, and the minimum optimal scale, is X bar. The price of factors of production which together with the technology determine the LAC, and hence the competitive price is PC. Okay, now the Modigliani reaches the same conclusion as Silos normally, that there is a determinate equilibrium price PL. So, okay, there is a determinate equilibrium price PL which is positively correlated with X bar. So the determinant equilibrium price PL is positively correlated with X bar, and PC is equal to LAC, and negatively correlated with the absolute market size XC. So and the elasticity of demand E. So the limit price will be higher. Okay, the limit price will be higher the larger the X bar. So the higher the PC, the smaller the XC, and the smaller the price elasticity E. So the Modigliani combined the above factors igneously in the following expression, combined, and he made an expression that PL is equal to PC 1 plus X bar by XC into E. Clearly, the term X bar by XC corresponds to Bain's conditions to entry E. Now derivation of Modigliani's limit price. The relation between the limit price PL and the competitive equilibrium price PC can be started approximately in terms of the elasticity of demand in the neighborhood of PC. So first of all, the formula for the price elasticity is E is equal to dx by x, so dp by p. Now maybe it's expressed approximately in finite difference and as follows, that E is equal to delta x by x and dp by p. So under Silos postulate, all the increments in demand will occur to the entrant. So that delta x is equal to xc minus xl divided by x, that is equal to x bar. So now the change in price is delta p. Now the change in price is delta p is equal to PL minus PC. So thus at the neighborhood of PC, the elasticity E is equal to X bar by XC and PL minus PC divided by PC. Okay, so solving for PL, we obtain PL is equal to PC into 1 plus X bar by XC into E. So note that the approximation of the price elasticity with finite change is not satisfactory for large values. So X by XC is equal to X1 minus XC by XC. So in particular, if the demand curve has constant elasticity, then for large values of X by XC, the premium price rise will be significantly underestimated. Now Now we are going to discuss about the determinants of the limit price. Okay, the determinants of the limit price. So from the above expressions, it is clear that the limit price PL will be higher the larger the minimum optimal scale of plant X. So the less elasticity the demand curve and the smaller the absolute size of the market XC. So at the comparative price PC, the relationship between PL and each one of the above determinants is graphically shown in given figures. So now we are going to discuss about the figures. Okay, so this is the first figure, and in this figure we show that the relationship between the limit price PL and the minimum optimal scale of plant X. Okay, we are going to we show the relationship between the limit price PL and the minimum optimal scale of plant X. So for given XC and E, the larger minimum optimal scale X2 allows the established firms to charge a higher limit price PC2 without attracting the entry. So the larger minimum optimal scale X2, if the minimum optimal scale is larger, that is X2, it will allow the established firm to charge a higher limit price PC2. It will allow the established firm to charge a higher limit price PL2 without attracting entry. Okay, this attracting the entry. So now in this figure, this is the second figure. In this figure, we show the relationship between the limit price PL and the elasticity of demand. We are going to discuss the first figure of this graph. So we are going to in this we say the relationship between the limit price PL and the elasticity of demand E. So for given XC and X at the PC and the demand curve D2 is more. Okay, now the elasticity than D1. So consequently what happens, the price that the established firm will charge is PL2 lower than PL1. So which correspond to the less elasticity demand curve PL. So now finally in this the second graph of this page, we show the relationship between PL and the competitive equilibrium market size XC. Okay, the relationship between PL and the comparative equilibrium market size XC. So for given X and E, the larger the XC, the lower the limit price. So here if the larger is the XC, the lower will be the limit price. Okay. Now we are going to discuss about the dynamic changes in the model. Okay, in the market, the dynamic changes in the market. So the first one is increase in cost. So if cost changes, okay, we assume that if cost changes, all firms are affected and hence the long run cost curve will be raised. If cost changes, all firms will get affected and the long run cost curve will be raised more or less uniformly. This development will lead to a rise in the limit price. So firms in oligopolistic market adhere to average cost pricing because it facilitates the orderly working of the market mechanism. Now, if the full cost pricing may well represent a very useful rule of thumb in reacting to the cost changes affecting the entire industry. So in an oligopolistic situation, if we are saying that in an oligopolistic situation with it precocious internal equilibrium, thus is much to be gained from simple and widely understood rules of thumb. So which minimum the change of behavior indeed to be peaceful and cooperative, being misunderstood as predatory or rationality. So now we have now discussed about the increase in cost. The second one is cyclical variations in demand. So Modigliani argues with the Silo's main conclusion concerning the variations in price and the gross profit makeup over the various phases of the cycle. So we are going to discuss about the various phases of the cycle. So first one is in a recession, what is happening. So in a recession, the limit price will show a mild tendency. Okay, it will show a mild tendency to rise. However, the markup may not rise due to cost of the ideal capacity, which will push the firms to give secret price concession in their eagerness to secure a larger share of the smaller demand. Then during a recovery, there will be tendency for the price to rise. There will be a tendency, there's a chance or tendency for the price to rise. But when full capacity is reached, however, large firms may strongly resist this tendency due to fear of potential entry. But the large firms will obviously gonna resist this tendency because they have fear of a potential entry. So instead of, they will adopt their policies such as allowing a backlog of demand or instituting informal rationing of their deliveries, while at the same time expanding their capacity. Okay. Now the markup will have the tend to retrace the sliding path followed in the contraction, and will stabilize at its normal level, which corresponding to the normal price line of the large firms. So now we are going to summarize the Modigliani's arguments. Okay, so Modigliani's arguments may be summarized as follows. So the optimistic assumption that existing firm will adopt a strategy of maintaining the pre-entry price by contracting their output is a rather foolish expectation. So the first argument is that he believes that the optimistic assumption that the existing firm will adopt a strategy of maintaining pre-entry price by contracting their output, which is a foolish expectation. It implies that established firm will allow the entrant to gain only share of the market that he likes, while their own share is accordingly shrinking, and their profits are reduced on two accounts, which are the price could fall, and at the price they would sell less. So their cost would rise as they would be gradually driven to the increasing part of their cost curve. So such an accommodating behavior would create a predictant for further potential entrants. So thus the strategy of implied by Silos postulates of the existing firm keeping the P&R quantity constant seems a more realistic assumption. Okay, it seems a more realistic assumption for the entrant to make. So we have discussed the shortcomings of the Silos postulates now. So now we are going to discuss about the main shortcomings of Modigliani's model, and it's summarized as follows. So these are the main shortcomings of Modigliani's model. Okay, firstly, the model does not determine the individual shares of the firm. Thus, the number of firms in the industry is not defined. Okay, in this model, the model does not determine the individual share. Okay, secondly, it assumes scale barriers are important. The model assumes that scale barriers are important. This implies that Modigliani does not take into account the typical form of entry in the modern business world, namely entry by an already established firm in the same or in another industry. Okay, he assumes that scale barriers are important. Okay, he assumes that scale barriers are important. And he does not take the importance of typical form of entry, and it can be like an entry of an already established firm or an firm from the another industry. Okay, he ignore all these possibilities. Okay, thirdly, the rationale of the policy of entry prevention is not also discussed in this model. Fourthly, dynamic accept arising from growing markets are also not considered. Fifthly, although at some point Modigliani states that the larger firm typically set the pace in the market and they set the price by applying the full cost rules of thumb, he does not fully explain how the price is defined. He didn't explain how the price is defined, nor does he discuss how the interaction of firm with the different cost and different cost and shares leads to stable market equilibrium. Okay, he does not fully explain how the price is. He didn't explain in this model how the price is going to be fixed. Okay, or he did not discuss how the interaction of the firm, how the firm is going to interact with the different costs and different shares. Okay, now sixthly, the last one is that the assumption that the entrant can enter only with the minimum optimal scale is applicable to new firms only. Okay, it is only applicable to new firms. An already established firm may enter at a scale which are profitable for it, or it also suboptimal for new firms. So the assumption of the entrant can enter only with the minimum optimal scale is applicable to new firms only. Okay, so an already established firm may enter. Yeah, that is the sixth shortcoming of the Modigliani's model. So by this I am concluding my words. Hope you all understand. Thank you so much.